Hello, this is JD from Tech Canvas, and in this video we will look at some sample PMP questions. As you know, the PMP exam lasts for roughly 4 hours and you would have to face 180 questions as a part of this exam. 5 of this will be unscored, but that is of least significance for you. As far as you are concerned, you would have to attend all the questions with equal sincerity. And in these 4 hours, you would have 2 breaks, each break not lasting more than 10 minutes. Now let us look at 10 sample questions for PMP. The first question: you are managing a project using a predictive approach. Your contingency reserve is $6,000. During the execution phase, you updated the risk occurrence in the risk register as follows. Risk 1 has an impact of $3,000 and the probability is 0%. Risk 2 has an impact of $2,000 and the probability is 50%. And risk 3 has an impact of $1,000 and the probability is 100%. According to your updates, how much is left in the contingency reserve? Option A $4,000, option B $3,000, option C $2,000 and option D $5,000. Now if you look at this, only $2,000 are left in the contingency reserve which are reserved for risk 2. Now how is that? Look at risk 1. It has zero probability of occurrence, which means you can release the associated contingency reserve for risk 1. And if you look at risk 3, the probability is 100%, which means the risk has already taken place as an issue, which means you have already spent the $1,000 reserved for it. Now that leads us to only one option, which is C, which is $2,000. Second question: Lamont was assigned by his superiors to lead a big project. This project is really important for his organization. Therefore, management does not want any delay in completion. Once he got the project charter signed, Lamont started identifying and categorizing stakeholders using various data representation tools. Which of the following tools will be used for this purpose? Salience model, stakeholder queue, direction of influence, and brain writing. You have three options to select. Now, data representation techniques include stakeholder queue, which is basically a combination of impact influence grid and a third dimension to the analysis. And then the salience model is also used to assess stakeholders' power, urgency, and legitimacy. And finally, directions of influence are used to categorize and classify stakeholders on the basis of their influence on the project. Now, brain writing is the odd man out here because it is used as a technique to stimulate creativity. So the right three options are salience model, stakeholder queue, and directions of influence. Third question: during risk identification sessions, Sam and her team identified more than 100 risks for the project. She thinks that evaluating each of these risks quantitatively will cost her an enormous amount of time. Well, not all of them are relevant and important enough to justify such a measure. What should her next step be? Option A: using qualitative risk analysis to prioritize risks for further quantitative risk analysis. Option B: qualitatively assess the probability of each risk and then analyze only those risks with high probability. Option C: assessing the potential impact of each risk qualitatively and then analyze only those risks with high impact. And option D: identifying risk triggers and then quantitatively analyzing only risks with no found triggers. Now, qualitative risk analysis is the process of prioritizing individual project risks, right? And we do this by assessing the probability and impact of the risk occurrence. Now, therefore, qualitative risk analysis lays the foundation to perform the quantitative risk analysis. And to do this, you need to consider both probability and impact, not one of them. Now, option B and C are ruled out. Option D doesn't make sense here. So, the right option is option A. Fourth question: Oliver notices that his colleague, who is fellow project manager, is showing up to the office with new high-tech gadgets every day. So he suspects that he is accepting gifts from hardware vendors who are bidding on an upcoming multi-million-dollar project. Which of the following should Oliver do? Option A: he should ask his colleague directly whether these items were gifts from vendors or whether he purchased them himself. Option B: he should talk with his colleague about the items he received until he is convinced to return them and not accept any more items from vendors in the future. Option C: he knows this is a conflict of interest situation and it violates a code of ethics and professional conduct, so he reports his colleague so that an investigation can take place. And finally, he tells his colleague that such gifts aren't appropriate and leave it at that. Now, the best reaction in this situation is to verify the information before taking any action. A violation based only on suspicion should not be reported. Oliver can get the facts right by telling his colleague that he is concerned about his appearance and asking him whether the vendor gave him these items. As a project manager, never jump to conclusions. Always verify and get the facts straight before reporting a conflict of interest situation. Now, the right option would be option A. He should ask his colleague directly whether these items were gifts from vendors or whether he purchased them himself. Fifth question. You are managing a biodegradable fabrics development project for a high-end luxury brand. The product owner and your Scrum team members are conducting their first sprint planning meeting. Team members have completed the preparation of the selected user stories and provided their estimates. As the team proceeds to implement the user stories during the sprint, what should the product owner do? Option A. Add more work for the team so they can deliver more value. Extend the sprint's length if it appears the team cannot complete the work on time. Shield the team from interruptions and facilitate discussions for the team members. And finally, option D, let the team work and answer any questions that might arise during the sprint. Now, adding more work for the team to complete within the sprint, it violates the implied agreement between the development team and the product owner, right? And shielding the team from interruptions and facilitating team discussions is part of responsibilities of Scrum Master and not product owner. Right? Also, sprint length is set at the beginning of the project and it is at best not changed. Plus, any work items that cannot be completed by the team during the sprint should be returned to the product backlog and rescheduled for upcoming sprints. Therefore, the product owner should be letting the team work and answer any questions that might arise during the sprint. This reflects a commitment both the product owner and the developers have made. So the right option is option D, let the team work and answer any questions that might arise during this sprint. Question 6. To determine whether the anticipated financial gains of a project will outweigh the present day investment, you can use NPV as an effective tool to help you determine whether the project will be profitable or not. For instance, NPV greater than 0 means we do not know until calculating the ROI, the project will break even, the project will lose money, the project is profitable. Now, NPV stands for net present value. It is simply the sum of present values and all the outflows and inflows. The larger the net present value, the more favorable the project is financially for the organization. That's a simple formula. A positive NPV means the present value of inflows is greater than the present value of outflows, thus the investment is worthwhile. And NPV equal to 0 means inflows equals the outflows, it is a break even. And then NPV being negative means the present value of the inflows is less than the present value of outflows, thus the investment is not good and the project is going to be in a loss. Since the NPV is greater than 0, this project is going to be profitable. And the right answer is option D. Question 7. Sabrina is a project manager for steel foundations. She has been brought onto the project in a very early stages and has been asked to write the charter for it. Over the past week, she met with a number of stakeholders, received their input, and she is now ready to have a charter signed. Typically, signing of the project charter is the responsibility of A. Project sponsor, project stakeholders, senior management, or project manager. Projects are authorized by someone external to the project, such as the sponsor, the PMO, or portfolio steering committee. Right? Unless the project sponsor is included within senior management, the project charter should be signed by someone with the authority to assign project resources and the authority to assign the project manager. For example, project sponsor. So, the project manager or stakeholders may under no circumstances sign the charter to authorize the project. So, from PMP exam perspective, the answer is option A, project sponsor. Question number 8. After getting a project approved by the organization executives, Dakota started estimating the project budget. She is using bottom-up cost estimation technique to calculate the cost of each activity. Management told her that the management reserve will be 6% of cost baseline. Which of the following represents the budgeted cost of the project? Cost baseline plus management reserve, contingency reserve plus management reserve, cost baseline plus contingency reserve, or is it only cost baseline? Management reserve is needed as part of the project budget to address unforeseen risks. So the difference between cost baseline and the project budget is the management reserve. According to PMBOK, the cost baseline is developed as a summation of the approved budgets for different schedule activities. And so management reserves are added to the cost baseline to produce the project budget. So the right answer is cost baseline plus management reserve, option A. Question 9. You are working on a construction project for a client. You have been instructed to use agile methodology to work on the project where you are working on the control schedule process. When an agile approach is used, control schedule is concerned with determining the current status of project schedule by comparing the total amount of work delivered and accepted against the estimates of work completed for the elapsed time cycle. Reprioritizing the remaining work plan, determining the rate at which the deliverables are produced, validated and accepted in the given time per iteration. Managing the estimated changes as they occur. You need to choose three options. Now, when an agile approach is used, control schedule is concerned with this. Determine the current status of the project schedule, and you do that by comparing the total work delivered and accepted against the estimated work completed for the elapsed time cycle. Right? Now, conducting retrospectives for correcting process and improving if required, determining the rate at which the deliverables are produced, validated and accepted in the given time per iteration, determining that the project schedule has changed, managing the actual changes as they occur. Okay, this also relates to reprioritizing the remaining work plan. So the three items that are more relevant to control schedule are option A, option B and option C. Now question number 10. You are the project manager of a telecommunication project following the predictive life cycle. While controlling the project execution, you uncover scope creep. You learn that the scope creep was as a result of prominent stakeholder of the project who is also your close friend. What should you do? Nothing, since the scope creep is a result of a prominent stakeholder and a close friend. Nothing, since the scope creep could have a positive impact on the project. Take the scope creep to the change control board. Reverse the scope changes since you didn't approve them. Remember, the scope creep should be brought to the project team's attention and treated as an unapproved change. This would need to go through the formal channel by reporting to the change control board and decide with them the appropriate course of action. As a project manager, you should avoid favoritism and conflict of interest situations by maintaining impartiality in your decisions. So the right option here is option C, take the scope creep to the change control board. So we have looked at 10 sample questions. Now keep in mind that your PMP exam is based on PMP ECO. ECO stands for Examination Content Outline. So it has three major domains: people, process and business environment. People has 14 tasks, process has 17 tasks and business environment has 5 tasks. And when it comes to exam question weightage, you have 42% people, 50% process and 8% remaining business environment. And when it comes to methodology, both agile and predictive have equal 50% weightage each. So what do we do at Tech Canvas? We are an authorized training partner for PMP exam. We provide you the 35-hour PMP training that you are looking for. We have a question bank with 2000 plus questions for you to practice. We also have full-length simulation exams for you to experience the actual test. Finally, we have flashcards and crossword puzzles which you can use to memorize various PMP topics. If you are looking for PMP certification, you can reach out to us. If you like this video, please share and subscribe. Thank you.